Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that short interview and learning more about Romea. We are now up to the final session of the day, and I'm very proud to introduce Nina Fasciaux. I hope, Nina, you know I studied French many years as a youth, but probably still have mispronounced your last name. We've known each
It-
other so long, I should know how to do it by now, but I'm sorry about
No,
that.
you did it perfectly.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Jeremy.
you. You're very kind. So Nina is the European Director and International Coordinator for the Solutions Journalism Network, which is Transition's excellent, devoted, incredibly helpful partner for our work in the solutions journalism field. And this is a topic which is very close to our hearts as well. And I'm happy to introduce Nina, who will be talking about this theme today and also a week from Saturday in a workshop that we hope you will also join us for. So Nina, please, we'd like to ask you to speak on how to report in and on a polarized world without making everything worse, which is a very impressive title, and we're looking forward to exactly how to do that. So the floor is yours. Welcome. Very happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for this really nice introduction, Jeremy. And I'm going to share my screen right away and get us started. Hold on. Let me know when you're able to see it.
Yes, it's fine. We can see.
Okay, great. So as Jeremy said, I'm the manager in Europe for the Solutions Journalism Network, which is a nonprofit that traditionally works to support the spread of solutions journalism around the world, and we do so by training journalists and supporting newsrooms and media entrepreneurs and professional journalists in general to adopt the practice of, solutions journalism is about reporting on responses to problems and just completing the work of a journalist by looking at what's working, which is very much what the Prague media point is about, looking at what's working to improve journalism. But this is not what I will develop today. I'm here to talk about a training project that we started in 2019 at the Solutions Journalism Network called Complicating the Narratives. And before I even explain what it is and why we decided to do so, I'm going to introduce my own nuances and conflict I have probably. We're doing this online with a pandemic happening since a long time now, and these are the people around me that might complicate my own narrative, my dog and my two kids who are home, and hopefully we'll go through dinner time without having me involved in it. So why is there a need to complicate the narrative? Let's look first at the numbers we have from the Reuters Institute Digital News Report from 2020. They looked across countries and surveyed people about their level of trust in the news today. Less than 4 in 10 say they trust most news most of the time, a fall of 4 percentage points from 2019, and less than half say that trust the news they use themselves, the one they chose to to follow. And 60% still prefer news that has no particular point of view, and that only a minority, 28%, prefer news that shares or reinforces their own views. Now, I live in France. I'm a French citizen, and I wanted to share with you a few highlights from France that we've got here. There is an annual survey made by the newspaper La Croix about the level of trust that French citizens give to the media institutions. And last year, that was published in January, and the survey is from 2019. Last year, 4 French people in 10 say they disengage from news. And the level of trust, it was the worst from all European countries last year. And that was 1 year after the start of the Yellow Vest movement. It was a movement of protest happening, started in 2018. 71% of the people surveyed say they don't think the media still understand their concerns after a year of protesting. Now, again, one NGO based, actually based in the US, but they have one organization that is also working in France. They looked at what divides and what unifies people in France. And they discovered that 9 in 10 French people say the public debate is more and more aggressive. That's how they feel like. And this is partly through the, consuming the media. Less than half said they trust the news they use themselves. And 49% described their ideal country like a place where we would listen and respect each other's. And I'll explain why I'm telling you all these points and these numbers right after this. One consultation from February 2020 looked at the recommendations that French people gave to the media industry to better propose a better news project. And one of them was to offer information allowing us to better embrace complexity by providing access to a structured diversity of viewpoints. I think there is a strong belief in some media outlets and among a few journalists that we need to simplify, and that people are looking for simple information that they can rapidly consume. And a lot of research is actually showing the opposite. People are craving for complexity, and especially on topics that divide us and really increase the polarizations in our countries, in our societies. They need more nuances and more complexity. So this whole project started at the Solutions Journalism Network because Amanda Ripley, who is an investigative reporter based in the US, realized after Trump was elected in 2016 that she didn't see it coming. She didn't give enough space in the narrative of her own country to Trump voters. She didn't understand them. She didn't think that would happen. And so she thought basically if she couldn't find a way to include their voices in the story she makes of her own country, then she was not legitimate anymore to do this work. And so she started to launch a really long research that lasted for months about how we can cover those topics: elections, immigrations, economy, all the topics that divide us differently, so we better honor the complexity of them, and we don't just add polarizations to polarization. And she went to see some experts in mediation, experts in conflicts, so rabbis, advocates, mediators, and she asked them basically what journalists could learn from these mediation techniques to better cover those topics. One thing that she found out during her research is that to cover conflict, traditional journalism doesn't work. It just adds more polarization to something that is already really polarized. One of the findings from the NGO More in Common, based in the US, the one that also have an organization in France and from which I shared a few highlights. found out that the more information American people consume, the less they are capable of understanding an opposite viewpoint. So the more they consume the media, the less they are, tolerant about other viewpoints. And so, Amanda wrote this wonderful essay. It's a 39-minute read long that you can also, we have an audio play so you can listen to it. We published that on our blog because we thought that was important. And the resonance, it resonated so well among the journalist community that we thought we have to do something about it. And so last year, as I said, we launched the Complicating the Narratives project, which was really is about learning from conflict mediators to better cover complicated topics and really learn how to more spread the nuances and have a public debate that is less divisive. And so the objectives of Complicating the Narratives is really about helping journalists to find new ways to report on controversial and polarizing problems. It draws on the experience of experts in conflict mediation, as I was saying, and it offers reporters strategies so they listen better, they ask different questions, they introduce opposing viewpoints, and they embrace nuance in their stories. And also it's about helping audience understand opposing views and engage more with the news, which brings us back to the numbers I was showing you at the beginning, how to make sure that people don't disengage from news just because they don't trust the news. I just want to make one important point here. It's not about convincing people they are wrong in their opinions or making them change their point of view. It's really about providing them the information that feels more accurate, more relevant, and more complete. So we came up with a guide to follow for more compelling stories on divisive topics. That really relies on 4 pillars. Number 1 is to listen differently. How to make sure that you understand your source's perspective, that you build trust and get better answers. I think we're often taught in G schools, when you're about to become a journalist, how to ask questions, how to conduct an interview, but we don't really learn how to listen deeply. Go beneath the problem by asking questions that might be more personal and gets to people's motivations and not just opinions. Because again, often as journalists, we will stick to interview people from different viewpoints and just stop there. You get your quote about one opinion that you want to surface in your coverage, and that's it. But you don't get to what made you think that way, or what made you follow that movement or protest there or whatever. Third is embrace complexity, acknowledging the complexity of one problem, looking at different location or moments in history to learn and better inform the complexity of the problem. And then counter confirmation bias. It's about our own bias, recognize that we journalists are human beings and we have ones, but also organizing opportunities for your community, your audience to hear about different opinions and to learn to just reconnect and have a dialogue, a constructive dialogue. So I'm just I will go quickly through the 4 pillars again and give you some tips. but I'll go a lot more deeper during our workshop on December 12th. So listen differently. We are using the technique of looping, which is an acronym for loop for understanding. It's really about how you can listen to make sure you understand in a way that your source feels like you really want to understand. So first you listen with the intent to understand what your source is saying. Then you offer to communicate what you think they meant in a language that is yours, but conveys understanding. So you will kind of report back to your source, making sure that you got it right. You observe their reaction, um, and see, you know, it's a good opportunity for your source if you ask, does that sound right what I just said? And he will correct you or add an information that he didn't necessarily think about in the first place. And then polish your understanding before moving on. Before you even ask another question, you ask, is there more about what we just said? And this is really important because it feels like nothing, but this is really the moment where you create a new space for dialogue and a new space for reflection for your source. Now, how to have, ask different questions that really honor the complexity, how to have conversations with people who disagree with you. We came up with 22 questions that you can find on our blog, and I'm happy to provide the links to the organizer if you need it. But it's really about how to ask questions that are more personal so you get to people's motivations. So that can be one example. Why is this personally important to you? Why did you, why personally do you think that you had to be there today in the protest? Which life experiences have shaped your views? What in your education, what in your, in your maybe your trauma or your life, what makes you fear immigration, what makes you fear certain things. For those who disagree with you, what would you like them to understand about you? This is really important because it gives the opportunity for the source to say out loud their frustration and what they think the other think about themselves. What do you want to understand about those with whom you disagree? This is one step towards dialogue and common understanding. And again, it's not about changing people's viewpoints. It's really about just, having this opportunity to get to the information that will help you uh, go across divides. Imagine for a moment that you got what you wanted in regards to this issue. How would your life change concretely? And that really helps you understand what matters, what matters for them. And all these questions are really coming from a deep, deep sense of curiosity. You're not judging, you're just sincerely curious about how your source feels and thinks. And maybe I can take 2 minutes, Jeremy, to see if there is any questions yet. I'm happy to make a break.
Sure. Yeah, if anyone has a question, please do post it in the Q&A. We will have a little time at the end as well, but if you already have a question about something that Nina has covered, please feel free to post that there.
Thanks.
We do have a comment, but it's great. Keep going.
Okay, that's good.
So I guess
Thank
that's
you.
good advice. Yeah.
Okay. So the third pillar of complicating the narratives is how to embrace complexity. One example, as I said before, is about, looking back or looking elsewhere. How can different period in history or how different places are can better inform what we are going through. So we heard a lot during the protest that followed the George Floyd death in a couple of weeks ago. 2020 is not 1968. It's you have often this kind of parallel that simplify what's happening and how people are feeling the moment. And so making the difference, but also looking elsewhere how things are happening can better just provide the context that people need to understand that this is complex and we should not rush to make parallels that sometimes can also hurt people's feelings. And I was also telling you about the way you can organize convenings and with your audience, or have people dialogue, even if you think they would never want to speak to each other. So that's something that happened actually at the initiative of a few newsrooms, and I'm going to give 2 examples. So the BBC organized, and that was part of their Crossing Divides program, which I will tell you more about in a minute. Last March, the March 5th, just before we went all under lockdown, a convening with 200 British citizens from different political beliefs, different viewpoints, different experiences, and they brought them together, and for a day they had them talk to each other using the looping that I just told you about, the first pillar. So, having them discuss having really hard conversation about the Brexit, about, I don't know, everything that it may be racial, racial divide, or social divide, and all of this was put on the table, but with a tool that could allow a respectful dialogue. And they really gave a great highlight to this event by showing it on their channels. There was a radio show, a TV show, and so they were really showing to the audience what could happen if we talk to each other and listen to each other better. This is also something that first Germany with Die Zeit Online organized. It's called My Country Talks, and basically they match 2 people who deeply disagree on a topic, and they have them talk to each other for a debate, and they really wanted to create this opportunity for dialogue, and this has worked so well that it's now happening in France. I think there is a program called My Europe Talks, and so really having people from worlds that feel to be completely apart come together and just have a talk. And going back to Crossing Divides, and I'm going to show you, no, I'm not going to show you the video because I see that we only have a few minutes left, and unless there is no question, I want to make sure that we can talk. But the Crossing Divide season, you can see on the BBC website, it's across departments at the BBC, and it was on the digital website, it was on TV, on radio, and it was about all sorts of topic, a Uber driver with a taxi driver, a vegetarian with a farmer, people who would disagree over Brexit, all sorts of topics that were discussed, and the BBC was filming it and really seeing what's happening, and they took it pretty seriously, and they even published articles about how to listen better and how to just have a conversation with someone that you disagree with. So that's really something that you see can have an impact on those issues that seem to divide us. And when you want to be informed about them, it feels like when you read the media or consume news, you feel like it comforts you in your previous opinions. And so these were good examples of ways to recreate dialogue and really, yeah, embrace complexity. And I can take questions if there are, and if not, I can show the video.
Yeah, Nina, there is a question in the Q&A, so
Okay.
I can read that out to you. Thank you, awesome presentation. I'm wondering how these things work online. I mean, is it possible to have these kinds of conversations and really listen also online? So have you seen any experiments with that over the last 6 months, or since we've all been shut up in our homes with Zoom?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can see me, and I see you, Jeremy. Yeah, that's actually a great question. When we really launched this series of trainings that we were supposed to have with a bunch of newsrooms, especially preparing for the American election around looping and how to better listen to each other, we were online already, and so we had to ourselves face those challenges and practice looping and teach looping online, and it worked. I mean, nothing is as good as seeing someone in person, because also the body tells a lot. You can sometimes there are gestures that are telling something, and it's harder with Zoom or on online videos to see that. But you can have those conversations if you take the time and if you have the right tools. You can have those conversations online.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Maybe while people are thinking, I would have one. What have you found when you're training journalists? Is it about expanding their skill set and teaching new things, or is it more about kind of reteaching what they've learned in a way? Teaching, breaking bad habits, or adding new skills? I would assume it's a combination of both. Is that correct?
It is a combination of both. I think breaking bad habits is it's true for you're in your daily job and you have to deal with so much time pressure. And I know, I mean, I understand why people are not taking the time to just talk about all the nuances. So it's about breaking bad habits. But I really think that the practice of deep listening is something that journalists don't necessarily how to do, and providing them one tool or steps to follow when you do so, when you want to have those difficult conversations around divisive topics. That's a new tool. That's something that we didn't learn in journalism schools, and that's also something that is not natural. Because look at you're Jeremy and many others, I don't know how many we are, but you're listening to me, right? But you're listening also to the voice inside you, thinking about why you want to respond or what you're thinking yourself. And this is something that we can learn not to do. So not thinking about the questions that you want to ask me, or not thinking about my own opinion or my own experience, even if it's similar, when I hear your experience.
Okay, yes, that makes sense. I think it would take some time to unlearn that for sure. Any other questions we have? We've got about 5 minutes left. If not, I will ask another one. As you know, often when we all do solutions journalism training, it's one thing convincing the journalists and another convincing the managers. So what kind of arguments are you making to the managers when you're trying to convince them to adopt this type of reporting?
Well, the numbers that I showed at the beginning tells a lot. Like people are really disengaging from news, and there is a trust crisis towards the media industry. And the editors and the managers, they know that. And they're looking for how to better equip their journalists to do better. But it is a challenge to convince them that you can do more complicated stuff without necessarily having long investigations, or you have to convince the editors or the managers that you can do complicating the narratives on TV, that you can complicate the debates, that you can go deeper even on a 15 minutes TV show. And that's where we're working with the managers to rethink that belief.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're pretty much out of time. Maybe if you could just give us a little bit more about what might happen in the workshop, because we said this was a sneak preview of what would be coming up and what you're hoping to do during the workshop for those in our audience who might be interested to attend.
Sure. Yeah. So during the workshop, we will learn how to loop, learn how to listen better, and we'll practice looping. We'll go together through the more complicated questions and what kind of information you can get from when you really get interested in personal motivations and not just opinions. And we'll also have one guest, the editor from Are We Europe will join us during the workshop to share how they thought their latest issue is about Europe and its colonialist past. Sorry, I'm tired. Colonialism, and that's a really complicated and difficult topic. And they use the tools from Complicating the Narratives to do this issue. And so they will share their experience, what it brought them, and how they covered that really hard topic, and other really great tips according to the 4 pillars that I just mentioned.
Great. Okay. So I'm sure that will be a very practical lesson for everyone. Hope you can make it.
Yes.
So Nina, thanks very much for spending your Friday evening with us. Thanks to everyone for staying to the very end today. As it's noted in the chat, there is a workshop tomorrow on digital security, free of charge, but there are some conditions that apply. If you are interested, please do contact us. Otherwise, we hope to see everyone on Tuesday for a full slate of sessions. We will be starting off with a look more into media sustainability, different income streams, and so on, something we haven't really covered so far. So other than that, have a great weekend, everyone, and look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. Thank you.